Good evening, Nqabayomzi Kwankwa, and welcome to Channel Africa.
Good evening, Tibos. Thank you so much, and thank you for having us.
Nqabayomzi, South Africans have been horrified by the footage from Milnerton High. What was your personal reaction when you first saw or heard about this incident?
I was also horrified. I mean, when the parents brought the video to my attention, it is because it had apparently been circulating for a while in the school since the incident happened. And while they raised the matter with the leadership of the school, the principal, and so on, nothing was being done about the challenge. They were told in no uncertain terms not to circulate or share the video with other people, which is in this case members of the public like myself. But when they came to me asking for help, I couldn't sit back, twiddle my thumbs, and do nothing about it. I had to share it with the rest of the people in South Africa, trying obviously in that process to protect the identity of the victim in particular, so that we could expose the challenges that some of our students experience at these high schools. And that is what came to my mind. And the second issue, obviously, is the work what that we had to do as a party in the background, trying to engage the different and the relevant stakeholders to make sure that they all did what was expected of them.
What does this say about the moral and social issues being cultivated in our schools and communities today?
Well, it reflects negatively on these moral challenges that we are experiencing in our schools, and they require leadership. I understand, yesterday I had the privilege of engaging the parents of the victims very late in the evening. We had a meeting that lasted up until 9 o'clock in the evening, where they detailed stories of what has been happening to their children for more than a year now. It's not an isolated incident. It is just that the school, at the time when they were reporting a series of bullying incidents that were happening against their children, not enough was done. They would be told that the matters would be investigated, but nothing was done. So, in other words, even though you can't blame the school for bullies who are attending classes or students at those schools, but the culture of impunity sets in or takes root when the leadership of the school, including the Department of Education, do not react timelessly to complaints and try to nip them in the bud. But it's clearly a societal problem. I mean, whatever is happening there is a microcosm of what happens elsewhere in society. And yes, we want these children to be punished for what they've done. An appropriate sanction should be imposed on them. But at the same time, there must be corrective measures that are put in place to ensure that we don't throw the kitchen sink at them rather, but that as parents we build them into better leaders for tomorrow, and we have that responsibility. However, now we have to teach them a lesson and make sure that they do not do this thing again.
According to reports, at least one of the victims required medical treatment, while others remain traumatized. Can you give us more details about this?
Yes. I mean, the parents said to me, the when I was given a report, is that the incident that people saw on video, which went viral, is one of the many incidents where these bullying and assault incidents had happened at the school. It would appear that the learner was then beaten up that day, was beaten up simply because he did not present himself the day before in order for him to be assaulted. And that was the reason. And some of those who sustained injuries were beaten in a series of beatings that took place at that particular change room. And it would also appear the reports that we're getting from parents, as well as the statements that were made by the learners to the police, that the same thing happened to them, I mean, around April when they were in George. They knew that whenever they were called to the change room of the first team, meaning the rugby team, the first team of the rugby at school, they would be beaten up. And the educators knew about this, turned a blind eye to it. Even those incidents that took place sometime in April were reported to the school. Nothing was done about it. Each and every time a video of this nature, because it is the same bullies who often take videos of themselves, right, assaulting learners who film themselves while doing this thing. So what happened is that even in April, it would appear that the same thing happened to learners. The matter was reported to the school. Nothing was done. They said they are going to investigate and take action later on, and nothing was done. They wanted to do the same thing again with the incident, appealing to parents that the video should not be shared with anyone because they were going to deal with the matter internally, and I wasn't going to take that nonsense, obviously.
Now, how do you then assess the response from the Western Cape Education Department? And I mean, you told us about the school itself that these some occurrences basically they've been occurring, and they haven't acted swiftly and appropriately enough, and that's something that you won't take. Now, the Western Cape Education Department, its reaction, how is it reacting to this? Is it reacting in a fashion in which arrives to expectation?
No, not necessarily. The only thing I would commend them for is being accessible and willing to take questions and willing to get us to work together collaboratively on this issue. When I met with the parents yesterday, one of their concerns was that there was not enough communication from the Department of Education. In fact, the only communication that the parents received came from the school itself. And that type of communication was when the school itself would actually refer them to the Department of Education. Even when there was time when the children had to undergo counseling, the parents were not aware. It just happened haphazardly at the school. In other words, the parents themselves were excluded from that process, but not only were they excluded from that process, they didn't even know that their children were going to undergo counseling. The parents themselves had to rely on the school to tell them as to how the process was going to unfold. But look, the dilemma of the school is that now there's a criminal case opened. There's a criminal investigation also taking place. Now, they did not quite know how the internal process was going to unfold, given that there's also a police investigation and there's a role that also needs to be played by the Department of Education. That needed to be clarified to the parents so that they knew exactly what to expect from what process and the duration of each process so that they knew what to anticipate and what was expected of them. However, today, one of the things that the parents had to do was to give consent to the victims, their minor children, their children who had been affected by this, give them consent so that they could give statements to the police in order to help the criminal investigation and to ensure that at an appropriate time arrests are made and people are actually sanctioned appropriately for their behavior.
I would imagine beyond this that this is also somebody's job. It's actually increasingly becoming worrying. And does the current Education Act or safety policy sufficiently protect learners from violent behavior? There must be someone really ensuring that this does not happen. But these reports not only suffice from where you saw it, you experienced it, but I would imagine that it's happening countrywide. So does the safety school policy sufficiently protect learners?
Well, I think on paper it does, in practice it doesn't. For as long as the educators themselves, including the education department, turns a blind eye to such incidents, especially because it's a cumulative effect of a number of incidents that took place over a period of time. If we allow a culture of impunity to take root when there are incidents of bullying at school and we don't nip the problem in the bud, it escalates to the level of assault that we have seen. But we have also been inundated. I mean, my office has been inundated since yesterday with messages of people asking for help. Others are as far afield as the Northern Cape. Most parents are complaining about the initiation practices that have become part and parcel of the norm and the culture of many schools where rugby is played, where first team players, it has become the norm for them to bully those who are not in the first team and to also do this kind of initiation, which is very violent. So parents from as far afield as the Northern Cape, the Eastern Cape, and many parts of the country have reached out to us. In fact, when it comes to Milnerton High School, Parents of learners were victimized and bullied in the past where they were not helped by the school, who are no longer attending that school, have actually reached out to us saying they also want to come forward. They also want to share their experiences of what happened to them at Milnerton High School and how those bullies have been protected by the leadership of the school year in and year out while terrorizing kids at that school. So the challenge is a leadership one. You can have all the rules you like. If there's no enforcement of the code of conduct of the schools, for example, if there's no, because the duty of care legally, once you hand your child over to the Department of Education, they have the duty, they assume the duty of care, and they are supposed to protect and ensure the safety of your child, the safety and security of your child. If they fail to do so, we can take them to court to ensure that whatever loopholes are in the system which make them to have these lapses are addressed. It's one of the discussions that I had informally today with the lawyers of the UDM to say, in the meantime, while you are allowing due process to unfold, we should prepare ourselves for any eventuality. In the event that they want to give these learners a slap on the wrist, in the event that the sanction we feel is not appropriate enough, but an important question that the Department of Education needs to account for, whether this process is concluded in the next couple of weeks or not, is that how is the department expected constitutionally and legally to discharge its duty of care responsibility towards our children when we entrust them to them during school hours.
The United Democratic Movement's Nqabayomzi Kwankwa, thank you very much for making time this evening to talk to us about this worrying incident that occurred at Milnerton High.
Much obliged to you. Thank you, Dad.
That was the United Democratic Movement's Nqabayomzi Kwankwa, who is the chief whip of the party and a member of parliament.